Okay, so there's two common misconceptions when you come to CS at Vanderbilt, or if you are adjacently connected to CS at Vanderbilt. The first misconception is that you have to be a CS major to work in the tech industry. And the second misconception is that software development or software engineering is the best or only career to pursue if you are a CS major. And today we are going to myth bust these two misconceptions because neither of those statements are true. In fact, some of the highest growing jobs in the most quickly growing jobs within the tech sector are those outside of software development. And there are tons of new niche jobs being created every day that take some of the skills from CS or take some of the aspects of tech and create these new niche jobs that you can really explore and cater to your own interests. So we really want to bust these two myths today, and we're going to do that by going over 4 alternate career paths. The first, which is product and program management. The second, which is quantitative trading and design, and finally data science. So again, I really want to emphasize that there are so many alternate tech jobs outside of software engineering and even these 4. And this is really just to give you a taste of the diversity of possible options. So if anything we mentioned today sounds interesting, I highly encourage you guys to do your research, kind of take these 4 fields that we mentioned and look and branch off and see if there's something even more specialized or something even more catered towards your own interests and skill sets. Some other possible tech careers that we won't be mentioning today, but that are also extremely viable and extremely popular include tech consulting, tech recruiting, video game design, technical writing and copywriting, etc. Okay, so the first major non-technical or alternative technical career is program and product management. I, Anna Zhang, will be presenting today. And if you have any questions, any concerns at all about this field, if you want to reach out or are interested, my email is listed as well. So what is PM as this field is known? Essentially, product managers, program managers collaborate across teams to build and launch great products. And since we're talking in the tech industry, usually that's referring to software or technical products. PMs really lie at this intersection of technology, business, customer thinking, design, and all of these other fields that companies rely on. So often when you hear about PMs or see PMs being described, they'll use this kind of Venn diagram, which you see on the right. In addition, PMs are seen as this bridge between different disciplines because they sit at the intersection of so many different teams. So they are the ones who will often lead meetings, lead cross-disciplinary discussions about what things need to be done or how things should be done. And their core mission is to be a customer advocate. So they want to think from the perspective of the users of the product and then use that to influence other teams to create the best possible products. And because, again, they sit at the intersection of so many fields, they may take on a lot of organizational or management tasks as they do their day-to-day work. So for me personally, I realized like at a very early age, I want to say like 4th grade, 5th grade, I liked to be the ones in group projects who came up with the ideas and like planned what to do and like threw really wacky, random, crazy alternate plans out there. And because of that, I often found myself organizing these groups and leading discussions and kind of assigning tasks. And I didn't really know if there was a job for this in middle school, elementary school. I just kind of did it and it was really my thing. But in high school and college, I found myself really drawn to the tech industry. And so I interned as a software engineer after freshman year. And while I really enjoyed the kind of product-oriented side of the internship, I did not like the coding. I could not see myself doing that for the rest of my life, basically, like as a career. And so I really started thinking, like, is there a way where I can be involved in technical things and work on technical projects and like come up with these like cool ideas and implement them, but not as a coder? And that really drew me to PM. And that's where I learned that PM was basically what I was looking for. I like to sit at the intersection of so many disciplines and work with different types of people and do work that's constantly changing. And that's something that PM allows me to do. So that's what really drew me to this role. Now that I knew I was interested, I also wanted to get experience, and I wanted to be able to succeed in the field. So just a brief overview of my technical background. In the summer of 2017, I did computer science research at a cancer lab, processing data using Java and trying to basically do image processing on categorizing cancer cells and the white blood cells that were also present on the slides. This allowed me to continue my kind of software engineering background as a SWE at a small startup in my hometown. But this is the internship where I realized, like, hey, I don't think I can do coding as a viable career for the rest of my life. I really want to try something different. And so in the summer of 2020, I interned as a program manager at Microsoft. And this summer, I will be returning to Microsoft as a PM intern as well. So all of this was really fundamental to helping me gain the necessary technical experience to succeed at my PM internship and my future PM internship. For a little bit of background and like more specific context on what I did as a PM intern, my project was basically designing, creating, and launching a dashboard to help improve the overall health, or like to look at and visualize the amount of security within the code of Office. So Office is Microsoft's Excel, Word, PowerPoint, etc. products. And so my job was to really create a new dashboard to allow engineers and other PMs to see how healthy our code was. Like, how many bugs do we have? How many overdue bugs do we have? Like, how many critical overdue security bugs that will like blow up do we have? And to be able to see that really clearly and really be able to tackle that problem. That was the task that was posed to me as an intern. And so that's what I did, was I created this dashboard to address that problem. PM internships are so many meetings. Like, I think my internship, there was not a single day where I had less than 2 or 3 meetings. And so you have to really be someone who is okay with talking and communicating with others constantly. And it was also so much writing. I was constantly writing technical specifications for other people. And that was a way of communicating outside of meetings to my engineers and to my designers. And one of the greatest things about this PM internship and what really makes me love it is I got to make big decisions and implement those decisions. And now they live in the company as an intern, right? So that's not true of all internship roles and not true of all career roles and career opportunities. But PMs really get to be decision makers because that is kind of what they are there to do. So that's what I really enjoyed about that internship. If you are hearing what I'm saying and you're feeling like this is a potential role that you could see yourself doing, I also want to emphasize that these are some of the skills required. So if what I'm saying sounds like something that you'd be interested in, here are some of the things that people are looking for when they're hiring for PMs. Is they're really looking for empathy. Are you able to connect with the customer or the user? Are you able to think what about the problems they have and about how to address those? Are you creative? Can you come up with solutions to those problems? Can you think of new ingenious ways to tackle the challenges that customers are facing? Again, organization and communication. Your days are going to be so busy. There's going to be so many meetings. You really need to be able to both organize your thoughts clearly and organize your tasks clearly and also communicate all of that. Flexibility. I keep talking about this intersection of roles, and that's so important. And so you should be able to wear many different hats, including technical and non-technical hats. And finally, teamwork. You can't get anything done as a PM by yourself, right? You need to work with your developers, you need to work with your designers, your data scientists, your business analysts in order to create things for the whole company. And so teamwork is really crucial. What you guys are all here to learn is yeah, this sounds great, but how do I do it, right? Like, how do I get the necessary experience or credentials to do this? And do I need a CS degree? No, you do not need a CS degree. Um, I actually do not have a CS degree. I am an econ major and a CS minor. However, I will really, really emphasize here that a CS degree opens so many doors, because a lot of the major companies, when they're recruiting for their PMs, will want you to have that technical experience because it really does help you communicate with the people you're working with at the company at large. So I was able to demonstrate the fact that I had these very technical skills through my past experiences and internships. But if you don't necessarily have those technical skills and abilities, a CS degree is another good indicator that you will have this ability to work with technical people. So that's why I think a CS degree really is very helpful, but not necessary. Another thing I want to emphasize is that experience is so much more useful than classes. And what I mean by experience is extracurriculars, leadership positions, things you're doing outside of the classroom. One of the reasons I think I was able to get my PM internship as a sophomore going into junior year was that I had a lot of leadership experience and skills built up from my experiences out of the classroom. And it's not because I was taking like engineering management classes. However, if you do want to kind of take advantage of the academic opportunities at Vanderbilt, I highly recommend engineering management classes, econ classes. They help with decision making and logical thinking, and also some communication classes. All right, handing it off to Jerry.
Cool, yeah. So we're gonna be taking a little bit of a sort of a detour into a more sort of like technical and also less product facing role, which is in quantitative trading. So I guess like first I'll just talk about like what quantitative trading is like in general. Um, Next slide, please. Yeah, so I think most people have watched like the Wolf of Wall Street movie where people are like trying to trade, or people where like traders are talking on the phone in like the 1980s, and they're basically selling. They're trying to sell stocks to ultra rich and also like not ultra rich people, and they're doing a bunch of sort of like scheming in ways to sort of like make money through arbitrage. Nowadays, this is not really sort of what happens with trading anymore. Most of the methods of trading have been systematized so that they're done automatically using specific types of algorithms. And quantitative trading is sort of this field which dedicates itself to building these models and building these models and mathematical methods and algorithms in order to actually conduct trades systematically. There's still a little bit of discretionary trading done by people, but this is for the most part, this is like definitely a lot less common than before. So a couple of the most common quantitative trading strategies that are sort of like used throughout the industry are proprietary trading, mid and high frequency trading, and market making. So proprietary trading is basically when a firm, a trading firm uses its own money in order to trade derivatives, stocks, equities, and bonds and stuff of the sort. Mid and high frequency trading sort of refers to, well, I guess the frequency or the rate at which things are being traded. So high frequency is sort of what's going on with large like market makers and hedge funds when you see like the tickers move on like Robinhood and like Schwab and sort of any of the retail investing services that you use. And then market making is basically market making is a little bit less removed from having a specific position in the market. It's more focused on providing a bid and ask spread in order to create more liquidity in the market and then make money off of that. Cool. So I was really drawn to trading back in high school since I was really interested in mathematics, especially in probability and statistics. What I thought was really cool about trading was that it's basically the intersection of like finance, math, and computer science. And I know like a lot of industries like to say that like they're at the intersection of like this, and this. I think what's really cool about trading is that like it really is at the intersection of all three. You really have to be pretty good at all. You pretty much have to be good at like mathematics, like general programming, computer science, and like have a thorough understanding of finance in order to be able to succeed in these roles. So me personally, like I have family members who went into finance. I have more of a technical background, so I was more drawn over to trading. One cool thing about trading is that you get to solve really unique problems relating to the market. There's and the cool thing about that is that like even though you're sort of working with the same stock market every single day, every trading day is actually very different from previous ones. You can seek out specific patterns or specific signals within the market, but these things really don't sort of like lend themselves to be super predictable, which is what makes the job really interesting. Another thing is that a lot of trading firms have a really game-oriented culture. So people at trading firms often have like poker game nights or like poker game nights. They like play Catan with each other and a lot of strategy games, which are like things that I personally am really interested in. And this is a little bit less of a good reason to be interested in trading, but trading is like pretty well known as the most as the industry that gives the most competitive compensation. I think like in regards to new grads, like you can for new grads, you can expect your compensation to be like considerably larger, maybe like multiple times of like that of a software engineer or a specific or like any of the other industries that you've ever heard of. But obviously, this is not a very good reason to go into the industry because a lot of the work is really challenging. You have to really enjoy what you're doing in order to sort of like stay in it. Cool. So I haven't actually had any career experience in trading. Me personally, I did not really have the background that was really required for a trading role. One thing that I do want to mention is that trading roles are sort of like seen as very hard to obtain jobs as since most trading firms are relatively small, under like 500 or 1,000 people, and also their intern classes are usually the size of like 40 or 50 people. Um, so for the last couple of years, I've basically been developing a couple of the relevant skills required in order to actually get started in trading. Um, I've also been recruiting for the last couple of years, done a couple of on-sites and learn more about the recruitment process, which I'll go into later. Going to my personal background, going to my personal background, I'm a math and CS major, mostly focusing on pure math, which is like due to out of like personal interest. My previous internships are in investment banking and data science. So I was really interested in finance or traditional finance freshman year. So I decided to do an investment banking internship. Found out that the hours and also the found out that the hours and the wow, I lost my train of thought after I saw Anna's comment. But I found out the hours and the sort of work that you're doing on a day to day wasn't as interesting as I thought it was, and I really wanted to be closer to the math side of things. On campus, I do a little bit of research in number theory and applied machine learning. And this summer, I'll be doing software development at Amazon, and then we'll be re-recruiting for trading once again in the fall. Cool. So trading internships are actually very unique in comparison to other internships because one thing that is required of working in the financial services industry is a Series 7 you have to pass a couple of compliance or regulatory exams, one being the Series 7 and one being the FINRA testing. Interns obviously are not allowed to take these exams. So interns actually do not do any trading themselves on the actual stock market. So what they do is, first of all, they take a lot of lectures. So a lot of these trading firms, what they'll do is they will recruit people that have very high aptitude in mathematics or economics or computer science. And what they'll do is they'll teach them everything they need to know about finance in order to succeed in a trading role. So for the most part, around like half of the actual internship for trading is actually just just attending lecture, doing homework, researching different industry trends, stuff like that. And this takes up a considerable amount of the internship before you're actually able to do anything sort of related to actual trading. There's mock simulation days in which you sort of like compete in trading simulations with other interns. This is sort of the only way that you can get like hands-on experience with trading as an intern, since you're not allowed to operate on behalf of the firm within the market due to SEC regulations. And these mock trading days are supposed to help you gauge how good you are at conducting trades, at building algorithms and such, because because one of the really important things about this industry is that you as a trader are able to consistently outperform other traders in the market. So you're either able to spot trends more, you're able to spot trends more quickly, you're able to adapt data more readily for specific models, or you have a, like, I guess, just a better trading strategy overall. Intern projects mostly revolve around like research in a specific industry. So an example could be like using past data in regards to specific equities or specific futures, and sort of mapping those volatilities and also those prices with respect to specific outside variable or external factors or indicator variables. And one thing that I mentioned earlier is that there's a lot of game nights. There's a very like poker focused culture in a lot of the trading firms. So there will be a lot of like game nights for interns. There's this one app called Poker Stars that pretty much every single trading firm uses. And there are certain nights where the entire sort of their entire app will crash since there's too many people on it. Since this is like not as big of like this is not as like well developed of an app as like sort of like Facebook or like Messenger stuff. So the trading interview process is pretty interesting. The trading firms usually recruit a little bit earlier than most other firms, or most software firms at least. It varies by firm. Varying by firm basically means that each firm sort of does their own trading recruiting process, which takes a different amount of time, different number of interviews. But for the most part, it can be broken down to the bullet points that I laid below. Another thing to note is that trading firms usually hire only at specific schools, specific target schools with very well developed like math and computer science programs. So oftentimes, if you're looking to go into trading, you'll have to reach out to recruiters directly. So a sample interview process for trading can look like it basically starts with an online assessment. This usually consists of a coding challenge or a math assessment. A coding challenge being like a hacker rank, a hacker rank that's similar to a one that you might do for a software engineering role, or a math assessment that is supposed to test your mental math, your knowledge in probability and statistics, and maybe a little bit of your knowledge in finance if that is included in your resume or something of the sort. Then you'll move on to technical phone screens, which are really gauged at measuring your mathematical ability. Questions that I've received in the past have been really difficult probability and statistics questions. And often you'll get a lot of questions relating to your background. So for example, if you're a CS major, or if you're like computer science or electrical engineering major, then you might get more questions focused on algorithms and programming. Or if you're an economics major, then you might have to do more stuff with econ, I guess. I don't actually know anything about econ. After your technical phone screens, there's usually one or two of them. You'll go in for a virtual in-person onsite. So this usually takes place throughout the span of entire day. This will usually be like 4 or 5 45-minute to an hour interviews, where you have several technical and behavioral interviews. And the technical interviews will sort of mirror what's been done before. And behavioral interviews will sort of just be to gauge whether you're actually interested in trading, or and why you're specifically interested in each of these firms. The skills required for trading are actually, there's a lot of skills you need in order to be good at trading. A lot of trading firms like to break it down to having good market intuition and being like quick on your feet. But this is really hard to quantify. So most of the times in their hiring prospects, trading firms will look for people that are really good at probability and statistics. I really can't stress that one enough. I think that is the one staple that every single trading firm requires. Also, really good understanding of data structure and algorithms. So if you have past experience in computer science, this really helps, as you can sort of understand why specific models won't work, since the implementation details of sort of a high scale trading algorithm might not be something that you can actually deploy to the market, since it'll work too slow. Also, by being fast on your feet, like you can practice those by doing brain teasers, mental math. And poker is sort of just like a side note in there. Poker is sort of just something that you can talk to different traders about and sort of lighten the mood in your interviews, since this is something that a lot of traders do spend a lot of their time with. So relevant coursework. If you haven't had experience in any of these or you don't have some of these skills, you want to continue to develop them. it's really important to develop, it's really important to take some classes in algorithms, upper level statistics and probability, and also to learn a little bit of theoretical machine learning, since a lot of the work in trading will be done using machine learning. And one thing, the difference between being a machine learning engineer and a trader is that traders often go back to first principles of why a specific model is used and why and how a specific model was developed in order to really figure out whether the mathematical intuition behind a specific model is fitting to whichever problem they're trying to solve. Cool. And last, I think this might be the last one. I'm not quite sure, but do you need a CS degree, and which classes and majors lend itself to trading? So you don't need a CS degree, but it is really helpful. It's real. I think first and foremost, it's really important to be good at math. The programming comes a little bit secondary, since traders are usually not the ones that actually code and implement the algorithms. For the most part, depending on what type of team that you're working on, you can be on a more sort of like you can be on more of a development team or a systematic team where you can create and implement your own trading algorithms, or you can be on like a discretionary team which revolves around more of you trading based off your intuition and specific like mathematical models that you use. One thing to note is that most traders or like most trading interns are former software and machine learning engineers, just because the skill set of like software and machine learning really lends itself to being good at like trading and also understanding the core skills that like sort of lend itself to this field. I like to think that like a solid understanding of data structures and algorithms is often enough. And by solid, I mean like really solid. I think everything, one thing that I noticed that everything on your resume, you should be sort of like ready to get grilled on in a trading interview, since like the way that since these firms hire in a really specific manner, they'll hire like experts in like various different fields, whether it be like math or computer science or like even like history and English. And you can pretty much be sure that there's going to be an expert in whatever field that you enjoy the most at the firm. And if that ends up being your interviewer, then it's really important to like sort of like know the fundamentals for these. So a lot of popular majors that go into trading are math, computer science, and stats. And this kind of just echoes what I mentioned before. These are some of the skills that you really need in order to become a trader. And just to contrast trading with software engineering, software engineering focuses on product development and has this sort of like client-facing side of like, hey, we want to develop this product for our clientele. We want to scale this up to a certain amount, or we want to scale this up to a certain amount of users. How do we do this while not, or like, how do we do this while like, how do we do this while like appeasing our clients and also making sure that the most of them are satisfied at any given time? In trading, it's a lot different since there are no clients. You don't care at all what you don't care at all what people think of like your product, I guess, since you don't have a product. Mostly you're focusing on creating and deploying trading strategies. And these are basically just, these strategies are really meant to focus on sort of like beating out other people's trading strategies. So having a solid handle of understanding what other people in the market are doing is really important to sort of figuring out what you want to do for your trading strategy. Another thing about trading is that like, I've noticed that like a lot of people in other industries have mentioned that they're not sure how their specific project or the specific team that they're working on really contributes to the company overall. This is really different from trading, since the very reason why you're hired as a trader is to make the firm money. So whatever your bottom line is as a trader is basically your contribution to your firm. So this makes it really important for you to do well in order for your firm to succeed. And it really ties your own sort of success to the companies, and also ties a lot of your sort of like bonus and other compensation to how well you are doing and the firm is doing. And last thing about trading is that you're always looking for new ways to predict market trends and explore efficiencies in the market. Whereas for software development, you might be looking at different ways for you to improve a certain feature or to work on a new feature. With trading, it's really just if you're working on a specific like equities team, then you're really just looking for new ways to outsmart competitors every single day of the week. So you're doing a lot of research and you're really focusing a lot of your energy on sort of like thinking and figuring out what specific approach to a problem that, or yeah, what is the specific approach to a problem that allow you to like generate the most profit. Cool. I think Kathy's next.
Yeah, so just to jump into it, I mean, first off, I actually have to leave after I present. So if there are any questions that come during the presentation, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll try to read them afterwards, but before I leave. Of course, if you have any questions that come up after the event, feel free to email me. It's zihan.zong, not Kathy Zhang, because she's actually someone else who goes to Vanderbilt, and she gets quite a lot of my emails. So it's pretty irritating, I guess. But yeah, today I'll be presenting for UI UX / product design. I think I'll mainly focus on UI UX, because product design I think deals more with engineering, like EE, mechie, and as a CS major, I don't have that much experience. I can still try to answer questions, of course, but I'll be focused more on the software side. So just a bit about my own personal background. I've always been into fine arts, so like painting, watercolor, digital art, and I've always had that interest ever since like elementary school growing up. And in high school, I actually started using Adobe Suite. So I've been subscribed to it for like a lot of years now. I've probably burned a lot of money on the suite, which is not fun. I highly recommend getting it through either Vanderbilt or having your company sponsor it, because that's much more efficient. But I started exploring graphic design and typography, which is more along the lines of visual communication design. So like what that is basically looking at how posters are designed, looking at how packaging or articles are designed in order to kind of see how and why people are drawn to things. And I realized that I wasn't the best at it, and that it didn't make enough money to make my parents happy. So I decided to go into computer science at Vanderbilt. Software engineering, I think I had the same experience with Anna. I very quickly realized that I didn't want to code my entire life, right? And I knew that I was into design, but I didn't really know how to integrate that. But then after doing more research, I discovered that there was a field called human-computer interaction. So how human-computer interaction, HCI, relates with web design is you kind of use these HCI principles in order to fulfill and justify your choices in the UI that you're creating. I'll speak more on that later. But right now, I'm currently working with Dr. Shiloh Anders on HCI and UI UX research. So it's little known that you can actually do quote unquote UI UX research here at Vanderbilt, but you have to kind of make it your own. So a lot of research that does happen at Vanderbilt is advertised or given as a data science internship or like a software research. But actually, if you go and you like find out that you can really customize and really alter the experience to kind of get the feedback and to get projects that you want to put in your portfolio. And I'll be a UI UX designer for SAP next year, which is very exciting. I'm very lucky to be having a job next year. So kudos for that. So what is UI UX? So I think it's really important, first off, to differentiate between UI and UX. So UI is what it sounds like, user interface. It's how we design the interactions between the user and the computer, because the GUI, the interface really is the path between the user and everything that goes on, right? So like you can have like the best coded program with like minimal latency, but like if your GUI is shit, no one's gonna want to use it, right? So that's like where UI comes in, and we strive to emulate what's natural. It's like the Macintosh interface when it first came out. We have folders to simulate like actually going through files, and we have a trash can because like we actually throw our stuff into trash cans, right? So like a lot of interesting things come from that. And that's primarily what UI is. And what UX, user experience is, I would say, is a bigger I would say actually UI is a subset of UX. So while UI is like the actual interface you're working with, UX is essentially the design system. It's the font that you use, it's the color that you use, it's the style that the company goes for, it's how you identify yourself when it comes to the market. So in that sense, UI uses elements of UX to brand itself, but UI uses HCI principles and like psychological principles in order to be more efficient and be more usable friendly and be more, I guess, appealing to the user. And I have an attachment of like the Apple design system. So like this would be an example of the UX because you have the font. I think it's Helvetica. I'm not sure. It was Helvetica like when I checked years ago. It's probably different now. But like you can see like the action is blue and like the disassociative action is red. And like it's just like little things like that, right? It's all what makes the user interface. But like the colors that are chosen and the style was actually what you would classify as UX. So just like a subtle differentiation there. Just to further disassociate UI and UX, this is a really good quote from the Nielsen-Norman group. I'm pretty sure I misspelled Nielsen twice this presentation, so obviously don't take my word for it. But this is just an example. You can have a great UX with a really bad UI. So like if you have like this movie review website is the one that the Nielsen-Norman group talks about. Someone who's looking for information about like these small international creator bios wouldn't necessarily find it on a website that only focuses on like Marvel movie synopses, right? So like it's important to think about your different user groups when it actually does come to UI UX design. And in that, I think that Vanderbilt actually isn't the, okay, like to be honest, Vanderbilt isn't the best place to do UI UX, but it is possible. I am an example of that. It is very, very possible to become a UI UX designer through Vanderbilt. It's definitely going to take a more work outside of classes and more personal involvement, but it can happen. And I'm here, I guess, to show you that. So a bit about my personal experiences. I was very lucky to have the opportunity to have an actual UI. I'm not trashing, I swear. PO said it first, so I'm not trashing. I'm just repeating what he said. But what career experience I've had. So I was lucky enough to get an actual design internship freshman year at Forever OSS in China, which is a software aviation company. Forever OSS actually stands for Forever Open Source Software, which is pretty cool, I think. But what I worked on was primarily they didn't allow me to do much, to be honest, because like I was so new. But what I learned was kind of like this prototyping design experience with different products. So on the left, it's like the website that I worked on a little bit. On the right, it's like the stocks app for like, I guess, like a younger audience who are getting into stocks and they wanted like this new like refresh interface. And this was my proposal. I made it in SketchUp. So like this was really great. I think not that much for the experience. I mean, of course, like the experience was great, but this was important because it allowed me to put experience in my portfolio. And that's like something I'll be saying like over and over. If you want to do UI UX, you have to have a substantial enough portfolio. So my next internship, I did it actually with the Wondery Innovation Garage, which is a Vanderbilt thing. So I actually went in as a software programmer. That's what the interview was for. That's what the position was about. And it was with ISIS, Institute of Software and Various Systems, a bit unfortunately named, but I'm sure a lot of you know what they do. But so I think it's interesting to know that like I actually came in as a SWE, but then I kind of, because they wanted to have a revamped interface, I actually made this opportunity more UI UX based because of what I did, right? So like of course I programmed, that's like what I was being paid to do. But what I really did focus on like was kind of creating usability testing, which is like doing surveys, talking to the users of our app, which were coaches. And because I did that, I could then like put this as an example in interviews, right? When they ask me, talk about a time you've worked with UI UX principles, like this can be an example, even though it was classified under software development. It actually wasn't, because I could make it more design based. And I think it's really important to know this. Of course, if you're at like a more structured internship, they might have ideas of what they want you to learn and what they want you to do. Because this was a small project, I was able to have a lot more flexibility. And in what I did, I was able to do a lot more. But I'm sure that if you tell a company that this is where your interests lie, they'll try their best to help you, because like they want you to learn, right? And they want you to provide. So I think it's important not to take everything at face value. So that was the extent of my work experience. Now I want to kind of focus on the the meat of the whole thing, which is the portfolio. What a portfolio is what experiences like quantitative trading to and PM that Anna and Jerry were talking about earlier. And and this is actually our project from the HCI course at Vanderbilt. I really recommend that class. I actually took it like while like COVID was happening, so it wasn't that great, because all the lectures were async, and it was more on like if you want to learn this, you actually have to like learn it and stuff. So that was it's classified under a special topics course, so it's CS5 something. But if you look up human computer interaction, it will show up in the fall. It's a fall semester course. So Professor Shiloh Anders, she actually works with the VUMC as a usability tester, but she teaches HCI here, and she also teaches error recognition classes, which is basically like if your user messes up something in an application, how do you like make it so that they like can do it correctly the second time, I guess. I don't quite know much about that. But this was the application that me and my group worked on for the semester project. COVID app, obviously, because COVID was going on, we wanted to make an application for people who were going through quarantine. The hand-drawn thing in the middle is the first prototype, the wireframe that we came up with. The bottom right is a storyboard, sorry, the bottom left, and then the right is the low fidelity wireframe that we made in Adobe XD. So this is a really great course, not really because of what you learn. You obviously learn a lot, but it's a really great course because the brunt of the course is to just make a project, right? Basically, you're left on your own the entire semester to work on an application with a group, and there's no actual coding at all. So what you're really focused on is this interface, is designing for people, and like you're doing a lot of research, you're doing like a lot of surveys to see what your audience is like, and then you're using like design principles, UI UX principles to like create something. And I found it really fun, and obviously it was a really big part of my portfolio, which has really helped me. I definitely think that the reason that I was able to find a UI UX job despite Vandy not having the best classes, or like not being known for UI UX at all, actually, is because I had projects in my portfolio. And going to the next slide, personal projects is so important. If here it's like a link to my website here if you guys want to check it out later. It's or like now I guess. It's a pretty messy because I just updated it, but like it's like a pretty good representation, I guess, of like a pretty standard portfolio. You have your experiences, you have your classroom projects, which was my HCI, and then personal projects. When I was applying to graduate schools, actually, because I was thinking about applying to HCI graduate programs first in order to kind of learn more before I found a job, which I actually really highly recommend. I think going to graduate school, it's a really great choice if you want to go seriously into UI UX. And obviously, after like being in this specialized program, you're way more likely to be in touch with people in larger companies like FANG, Apple, Google, Netflix, who are looking for UI UX designers. But because the resources here are pretty limited, I think definitely personal projects is what was so important. And the Facebook UI case study I worked on while I was applying to graduate schools, because it was actually a requirement for Stanford's graduate program. which I didn't end up applying to because I was too intimidated to finish my application. But I think case studies are really important because it's kind of getting rid of all the outside factors and like just saying, here's an interface you're familiar with, here's how I think about it, and here's like ideas that you might not have thought of, and they'll be like, oh wow, like you're actually really good at UI, and you're like, thank you, please give me a job. And then I think my final tip, I guess, is to kind of work on what you like. So on the right, this is a project I made for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is a really, really great anime. If you guys haven't watched it yet, I would highly recommend. But that was more of a personal project for me to learn Figma. And I definitely wouldn't have been as into the project as I was if I was working on something unrelated like stocks. Sorry, Jerry, I'm not that into stocks. But definitely, I think breadth is really important when it comes to making projects. Breadth over depth always, because I think there have been studies done, but like the more projects you worked on, even if you don't finish them, they're better for you in the long term than just committing to a few projects. And definitely, more projects are better for your portfolio as well. You obviously want to make sure it's specialized with only your best work, but when you're making projects and deciding what to put in your portfolio, having a lot is great. Finally, what are the skills required for UI UX? I enlisted 3 Vanderbilt courses that I think would be relevant here. There are probably more. I wanted to include the digital arts class that was offered in Bronson Ingram, the Arts Center. But I don't know if they offer that anymore, and I'm not sure if they go, like, if it would be that helpful when it comes to actually like thinking about usability principles. Human computer interaction is the #1 course I would recommend, just because of the fact that you can actually make a portfolio project and get a good GPA at the same time. The professor is really, really great, Professor Anders. She's so nice. She'll talk to you about anything. And I'm definitely, I told her that I was interested in UI UX and I really wanted to do UI UX, and she definitely gave me more resources and gave me tips for what I wanted to do. Web architecture with Professor Hemingway, someone you guys probably know very well. It's good because you get the background of kind of what you're actually making. So this gives you more experience and more knowledge in what you're creating. It helps you work better with developers, and something that I'll mention in the next slide. And I think I saw when I was like applying for courses like sophomore year, there was a product design course. I think it's graduate, but I'm pretty sure you can take it if you talk to your advisor. Books/internet. Of course, the internet is really, really good. I don't recommend getting graphic design books. I know that, like, for me personally, I bought like 50 and then I never opened any of them. So it's like all they do is like look nice on my shelf and like make me feel like a designer. But About Face by Alan Cooper is the best book, I think, universally for UI UX. It's what Carnegie Mellon uses. It's what Northwestern's EDI program uses. It's really, really great. If you talk to any HCI person, they'll probably know About Face. It's basically talking about design in terms of HCI and also a little bit of CS, which is really interesting. Nielsen, this is the second misspelling. It's not Nelson, it's Nielsen's usability design. I just put this generally because he has a lot of books. All of them are pretty good. There's like actually a joke that like he says, like, if you follow his tips, you'll end up designing something really ugly but really usable. So like take that with a grain of salt. To get inspiration, definitely Pinterest, Behance, Dribble, just like to see what other people are making and keep up with the trends. I think it's really fun to scroll down. Obviously, don't get too bogged into it because a lot of people show off a lot on there, and it's not great for imposter syndrome or anything, I guess, if you spend too much time. And finally, the programs that I would highly recommend looking at. Figma definitely is #1 in the industry. I want to say right now, just because it's free. It's free for like low tier, of course, and then you can use it on the web, so you don't actually have to download anything. It supports really good inter-user updating. So it's kind of like Google Drive, but for design. Adobe XD is big. You have to pay for Creative Cloud, which is a big minus. SketchUp is really good, but it's limited. It's only on Macintosh. So that's like also a bummer. But SketchUp was definitely really, really big a few years ago. I think it's still big now. I know SAP asked us to become comfortable with Figma and SketchUp. So if that's any indication of what's in the industry. And finally, just to talk a bit about AUI and AC, sorry, let me plug in my computer. UI and CS in being combined in particular. There's actually a new area called don't like quote me on this, because like I was really surprised when I heard this, but apparently product designer / developer is now being used to refer to somebody who has software development backgrounds but is a UI UX designer. So it's like basically it's like it's kind of like what I did at my internship with the Wondery, where you're actually programming the designs that you're making. And obviously, because that requires so much skill, right? Like you need effectively to have two minds. You need to have your design mind and your programming mind. It pays super well. It pays like definitely 6 figures. I'm not sure how much specifically, but it's really great. Of course, if you're just going to UI UX, CS is really fantastic because you get to understand the logistics behind the design, and that's definitely something you can say when you're giving interviews, is that hey, because of my CS background, I can understand the limitations of the dev team and I can work with them better, and I can know a bit more about what it takes to actually create this design, and I'll make choices that are easier and that work better and are more compatible. So in that, you do have really good communication. You are worth a lot more to a team. And that's all I have for UI UX design.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions for Kathy right now? I know she has to head off, so any last minute questions, type in the chat. And of course, her email was also posted on that first slide. So Kathy, if you are comfortable, people can contact you there, right?
Yeah, for sure. Email me any questions. I am usually respond pretty quickly. So I should get back to you soon.
Awesome. Great. And so the final career and like I guess alternate path we'll be looking at is data science, presented by yours truly on behalf of my very good friend Naitian Zhou, who is a junior at U Michigan, majoring in data science. So when I say it actually means Naitian. So data science is basically just statistics, but you get paid more. So that's really cool. And there's a lot of different flavors or types of data science, but essentially all of them boil down to the same thing and require very similar skill sets, which is you make computers do math for you. And you make computers do very complex statistical math for you. And so the 2 types of major jobs in this tech industry are data scientists, who design the experiments and answer the questions using the data that they've been given, and data engineers, who process the data and really make the data workable and hand it off to the data scientists to work with. An important distinction to make here is that when I mention data science, I'm not talking about like the other side of like data science, which is the business analyst role or the consultant role or the like, I guess, less technical role. I'm very much talking about like machine learning, algorithms, more on the like technical math side of things. So Naitian's previous experience with data science was he was working at Capital One on the credit card machine learning team. And basically, he was making data models to bid on specific ad prices so that consumers would see ads that were targeted for them at like the lowest cost to the company. And he also worked on analyzing A/B testing data. And this is when he really realized that he, again, preferred data science to computer science and coding as a career path. So then sophomore summer, he did research at USC. And one thing that he really wants to emphasize here is that finding a professor in a research project that you are truly interested in is much more enjoyable, so much less painful than doing research on something that you're not interested in and that you've been randomly assigned to. And so he's currently doing research at the University of Michigan in the Blah Blah Lab, which looks at behavioral language analysis and like basically like cultural and social trends in language and using data science to process those trends. So the way that you get involved in data science or gain experience in data science is through research. So as important as internships are to all of the other fields we've mentioned today, they're not really that important for data science. The key thing in data science is really to accumulate research experience. And so starting from undergrad, starting from freshman year, if you can get research and do it either during the school semester or during the summer, that is the most valuable experience you can do. There's also a program called REU, which is like research experience for undergrads. It's sponsored by the National Science Foundation, and it's this extremely extensive network of research opportunities across the United States at super, super good research institutions. I know some friends who did research at Stanford, MIT, Harvard, like all of these really great STEM schools that will basically open up their labs to summer students. And you get paid, you get housing. This is like basically the equivalent of internships for researchers and data scientists. And if you want to become even better and like one up your skills, you will usually need higher education, which I'll go over later, including a master's or PhD. And in order to get into a master's or PhD program, again, it all comes back to research. So they are also looking for you to have undergrad research experience. So for doing this undergrad experience, the bar is actually very low. So at Vanderbilt and at plenty of other universities across the country, as long as you're willing to learn, as long as you have kind of technical aptitude, even not technical skills, you don't really need that. You just need the ability to like start doing stuff. You can do so much, and you can really just like jump straight into research. The key is to gain access and master a fundamental coding language, preferably Python. And because Python is a language that is able to be replicated and used in so many other libraries, once you know Python, you can do NumPy or Jupyter, and you can do Matplot, and you can do scikit images, and you can do all of these really great things. It's like the gateway drug, I would say. It is the key, and it opens up all these other possibilities. So you don't need to know anything outside of just a fundamental coding language and then be able to master that and use that in other aspects. If you want to go into industry, the bar is higher, and that's why master's or PhD programs are really so crucial in data science. If you know this is a goal that you want to go into and you really want to achieve, then you can take like intro to machine learning classes in undergrad. And you can think about these questions about like how to evaluate, interpret machine learning models while you're still in undergrad and really look for classes that train those skills. But in general, the bar is super low as long as you're willing to learn, as long as you want to become good at data science. There is many, many paths to being able to like master those skills. And the key distinction between data science and software engineering is really looking into the meaning of the word science and engineering. So engineering literally means like building things, right? You're engineering a new bridge, means you're building a new bridge, you're designing and putting it into the world. Science is exploring and learning new things, you know, asking questions and trying to answer them. And so data science is much more about that kind of exploration and trying to figure out the answer to a question, and less about actually creating things. You're looking for new information and synthesizing that information into something that you can then apply to the world, but you're not actually creating new things into the world. So that's why the type of people who would generally succeed in data science are those who like that kind of meticulous, high attention to detail work and who aren't necessarily drawn to creating and building things like software engineers might. So therefore, people who like computer science and math are really, really good for data science. In terms of data engineering, it's good to be meticulous and have high attention to detail. In terms of data science, yeah, you really do need to like math because, like I mentioned previously, you're in charge of like answering these questions that no one else can answer using computers and using math. So you really got to like your math, and you got to be open to exploring otherwise unsolvable problems through a numerical approach. And so, for example, on the left, you have like random forest grouping and like tree groupings displayed visually. And like this is something that is impossible like without a computer. But with a computer and with some math, you can do like really cool, amazing things. On the right is an example of image processing. So how a smart car, self-driving car might process images into like different layers and like learn what things are things. It's through this complex system of math, through machine learning, and through computer science. So again, it might seem like, oh, data science, you have to know like computer science, but actually an undergraduate math degree can be more helpful and make you more competitive in the job market than a computer science undergraduate degree. And even if you don't have an undergraduate math degree, you can take machine learning classes and statistics classes and explore what you're interested in. And that will be super helpful when it comes to grad school. So data science, again, is this very, very technical field. And the way like US universities work is undergrad is really about breadth rather than depth. And so to be a successful data scientist, you really do need to go to grad school. And NITIAN really recommends a CS master's degree rather than a data science master's degree. This is because data science master's programs are really new. Not a lot of schools have had them around for very long. And so they're not good indicators in the job market or in like further education for how well you know your stuff. Whereas CS master's degrees typically are much stronger signal and show like more rigorous coursework. And a quick tangent is that data science and all of these like modelings and things we've been talking about are really applicable in the journalism industry. So tech in journalism is a very fast growing field. Just think about all of the graphics we've seen surrounding COVID-19 data, or if you've ever looked at election tracking and you've like stayed up late at night, like I know I have, like refreshing New York Times and trying to see who's been winning Georgia. All of that graphical analysis and that like data is through data science in journalism. So if you are someone who really likes the humanities and writing in that journalism industry and you have technical skills, you can do data journalism, which is building graphics to tell stories and help the readers of those stories understand what's going on. Or you can do newsroom engineering, which is like a software engineering job, but you're building software specifically for journalism companies to do interesting work. And one of the reasons why working in the journalism industry can be very, very intriguing and rewarding is because you ship products very quickly and there is a ton of innovation within the sector. So Svelte, which is one of the like premier JS frameworks, like even Vandy Hacks uses it for some of our websites, was created by a New York Times graphic editor. D3, which is a highly, highly like renowned data processing software, is also created by New York Times graphic editor. And you also get a lot of external validation because millions of people look at journalism and like read the news and like comment on like graphics you've created or stories that you've made. So that is the quick tangent into tech and journalism, something to think about. All right, I know that was super long and we kind of threw a lot of information at you. So any questions from the crowd?
Let's first go over the questions in the chat. There were 2 questions that we haven't answered. And
okay.
the first one was about the PM career, the career of the PM. So Do you have any specific Vandy courses you'd recommend if you're looking into becoming a PM?
Okay, so me personally, I don't have any courses to recommend because I haven't even taken like what is it, ENGM 3700, which is called like project management. I have not taken that course. To be completely frank, I really want to stress the fact that extracurricular experience, leadership experience outside of the classroom is so much more crucial than PM classes per se. And the reason why is because every company like does PM differently, right? Every company has like different leadership structures and different roles that they want you to take on. And so it's honing the skills that matters, not knowing the stuff that matters. You know, like this is kind of the same as consulting, where it's do you have the problem solving ability rather than do you know stuff? So I'm really sorry, but I do not have any specific courses to recommend.
Yeah, and there was another question also about the career of the PM. And what was the most difficult creative problem that you had to solve? Did you have to build clarity or background along the way, or did you already have some understanding of the topic of the problem?
I love that question because the team I was working on at Microsoft was called the Security and Compliance team. And I have no background in either of those fields. So when they put me on the security and compliance team, I was a little nervous, to be completely honest. But really what it came down to was I was able to like onboard very quickly and learn what I needed to learn in my specific field. And so let me walk you through one of the problems I was facing around ambiguity. Microsoft currently, but when I was interning, did not have a process for evaluating static analysis rules. So static analysis rules are these rules that like auto-generate bugs in the code. And they didn't have a way of asking like, hey, is this rule good or is this rule bad? And so my one of my side projects during my internship was creating the standard, like creating the framework that Microsoft is going to use from then on out for how to evaluate static analysis rules. And this was like, frankly, terrifying. They were asking me, an intern, to like create the framework from which they were going to use like from then on. And I had no background in static analysis. I didn't know what static analysis rules were until that internship. But by researching, by talking to engineers and security engineers and other PMs on my team, and by using like the synthesis skills that I have in order to like synthesize the needs of all of these teams and really dive into like what they were asking me to do, I was able to create that like framework. And it also involved a lot of research, a lot of writing. But I would say it's a very personal thing, right? Like, how do you take an ambiguous goal and turn it into a clear solution? It's something that I'm sure everybody does a little bit differently, but I guess that's just an example I want to bring up of how I did it in my internship. Any other questions?
I was sort of personally interested, like, is there anything you guys do not like about the jobs that you're going to pursue?
Yeah, I think with PMs, I mentioned this, you can't get shit done alone. Like you have to work with other people because you are not the one that is like necessarily building your ideas. You are merely kind of like the manager or organizer or like idea generator. And so you really, really have to be someone who's patient and is able to like do things that involve other people and not get frustrated by that. And like that's something that can be very frustrating. So I would say that's one thing that is kind of annoying about being a PM is you have to be able to really be patient and work with other people.
Jerry, do you have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I guess one thing that like I particularly don't really like is sort of like it sort of ties itself to the working hours, I guess. In the sense of like this like trading is like very high stress and like very high like performance based job, and this often requires a lot of traders to work behind the scenes after they sort of finish work for the day to do after market analysis, pre-market analysis before work. So I think like the work-life balance is definitely not as good as like a lot of other options that have been presented today.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for sharing. And Jason also wanted to ask some question. I think you unmuted yourself.
Oh yeah. Um, if I get cut off in the middle, my battery's at 8% and the charger's not working. But yeah. Um, I'm primarily interested in PM. I was just curious, like a kind of a technical question, but like, do you write cover letters for those?
You don't have to. I've never written a cover letter. Yeah, most tech companies kind of do away with that archaic process.
Okay, and then do you have any advice for kind of breaking into PM as like a non-technical? Because I don't have a CS degree. I was lucky to land in software or not just internship company with us in tech, but other than that, that's like it.
Yeah, breaking into the industry is really hard. Interview practice is really crucial. Finding internships to apply to can actually be really, really crucial because I think a lot of people are applying to like the big tech companies, but they don't realize that smaller startups also hire PMs at a very at a much better rate, right? Like your success, your chances of success are much higher if you apply to like startups and get your toes wet and gain that experience, and then you apply to big tech companies. So applying to the right companies and practicing your internship or sorry, your interview abilities and showcasing how well you can communicate with others in that interview is, I think, really crucial.
And then any advice on beating ATS?
Sorry, what's ATS?
Like the filtering systems that companies use to like screen out applicants.
Oh, maybe I'm not the best person to ask because I've never looked into this screening process. But I think if you are interested in like just general like resume advice, like how to get your resume past the screening stage, feel free to email me specifically with those PM questions.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, Anna. I have another PM question, actually. So you were saying in your presentation that it's important to be able to demonstrate that you have the technical skills if you don't have like a CS degree. So like what kind of like skills would you say like someone would need to present if they want to secure an internship or a position?
Yeah, having past experience in software engineering, like at a software engineering internship is really great, or like CS research. Being able to not just list on your resume that you know Java and Python and C++, but being able to like show that you've done something in Java, C++, Python is really, really crucial. So that can involve things outside of internships too, like personal projects. So if you have, for example, built a website and you list that as a personal project on your resume, that shows that you can communicate with web developers, and it shows that you have actually done stuff with like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, etc. And so I think personal projects are a great way to demonstrate technical ability outside of having a CS major.
Okay.
Do you guys have any other questions? Would be happy to answer them. And if you guys don't have any questions, please don't leave right now. We have a feedback form and we really want to get your thoughts about this event. So I'll paste this. You already see it on the screen, and I'll paste it in the. We already pasted in the chat. Yeah, thank you, Easy.
Yeah, so again, thank you guys so much for attending this event. I really, really hope it was helpful. It's kind of like one of my personal passions is showing that there are more possible careers in this tech world outside of CS, and kind of promoting these kinds of different alternate paths. So if you found this at all helpful, check out other Vandy Hacks events, check out our mentorship program, and we'd love some feedback. So hit up that VH link.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for showing up.
Thank you. It was nice to see you again, Anna.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren.
Thank you guys. It was very helpful.
Awesome. Great to hear it. Oh, thanks, Saeed.